So I think that's just kind of been the time for me to like really find some patience, and I've never been a patient person my entire life, so this has definitely tested me a little bit.
This is exactly what you want to hear if you're a fan of Fever or Caitlin Clark. She is in a great mood, and more significantly, she is not hurrying because this is more than just a single game. There may be more to it than just the season. If anything, she may have played through the agony, which is why she ended up in this predicament in the first place. She's simply like that, a fierce rival to her heart. She might have already made a comeback against the Dream by the time this video airs. In my opinion, that is not likely. Without her, the Fever are winning. She'll get a whole extra week of rest if she doesn't play, and the season is still young. I'm not her doctor, though. Tell me if I'm mistaken in the comment section. One thing is certain, though, regardless of when you watch this. The season's biggest game will be when Caitlin Clark returns. Before she sat out, she was already smashing viewing records. Furthermore, this small hiatus produced something powerful, so I don't think we've seen anything yet. Contrast. It is now quite evident how the league differed with Caitlin and without her. The Fever had to discover who they were and how to succeed without her. And you want just that kind of hardship, particularly early in the season. With a stronger, more unified team behind her, Caitlin is now in a position to accomplish what everyone had hoped for from the beginning. Make this club a serious contender for a championship. The results of a little patience and time away are astounding. Put a trophy emoji in the comments if you're still here. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you later.
Obviously, this game is peaking at 3.2 million viewers is crazy for the WNBA, even for the Fever. So this year's peaks are already freaking higher than last year's peaks when this team was starting to do a bit well.
She has been learning the game for a long time. It's not new. To be honest, though, she may be learning something new from her time on the sidelines, the viewpoint of a coach. And it's manifesting. She is becoming an even greater leader as a result of it. She isn't merely quietly sitting there. Her DNA does not have that. She's focused, analyzing plays like a coach, speaking up, encouraging teammates, and picking things up on the go. And lastly, the much-anticipated question. The one that looms over every Fever supporter, every news story, and every television show. When will Caitlin Clark return? Here's the good news now.
Possessions for New York. Clark, step back three. Oh, she hit it and draws the foul. Welcome back.
And you can't teach it right there. Caitlin has that spark. She thrives on the grind, the repetitions, the movie, the extra effort, the continuous learning, the continual support of her teammates, and the steady development. And yes, being on the sidelines is killing her. Even so, she continues to find ways to lead, develop, contribute, and advance this team while she is away. She also showed us during the press conference how she continues to influence the game even when she is on the bench.
1 second left. Clark doesn't get the shot off. Cloud locks her up, and New York comes into Indianapolis and takes the checkered flag.
This isn't a crazy conspiracy. It's only simple damage prevention. And you can see why they would keep things ambiguous if that's what's actually going on. The excellent news is now available. This is, to be honest, the reason I kind of hope the theory is correct. Because if Caitlin has been quietly recovering from an injury over the past several games and has now finally taken a break to recover, we may be seeing her at her best. Consider it. She wasn't entirely herself. Additionally, she continued to post strong numbers. Imagine what will happen when she is completely well. Here is yet another hint that lends credence to the notion. Another indication that she might have been hiding her anguish all along.
I think this was a kind of gut punch for us. We're going to come back tomorrow practice, more focused, more energy. We know we want to be at the end of the season, but we're not just going to get there. You know, sometimes it sucks and it's a grind, and that's where we're at right now. But I do think short-term and long-term, it's going to make us better.
Consider it. This season, Caitlin Clark is actually worth $1 billion to the league. It's not simply a bad look if the Fever allowed her to continue playing game after game despite knowing she was suffering from an ailment. That could be a PR nightmare. I'm not a lawyer, but it makes sense when you take into account Caitlin's competitive nature, the fact that she hasn't looked her best throughout the season, and how much is influencing her success.
Inbound to Mitchell, who nearly lost it, retreats, gets up a really tough shot, and Connecticut survives.
To begin with, that theory does have a positive thing to say about Caitlin. And in a moment, I will address that. Let's face it, though, I wouldn't be shocked if some liability management took place in the background. Because a completely different discussion would arise if this wasn't a coincidental in-game injury and the team was aware of it and she continued to play through it.
Fever now on an 11-2 advantage. Miscommunication and stolen by McDonald, who races to the other end and finishes.
Although Caitlin claimed she couldn't recall the precise moment of the injury, not everyone agreed. There is increasing conjecture that she has been subtly coping with this injury for weeks rather than it being an unexpected freak accident. A steadily growing item. She attempted to push through it until she was unable to do so.
And if there's one thing that is a certainty for the Indiana Fever, it's that hold on to Aerie McDonald at all costs.
One thing has become evident from all of this. It's not Angel Reese who is making the difference. Caitlin Clark is in her element here. And the dispute is over when Caitlin comes back and the ratings soar once more. It's finished. And perhaps, just possibly, the WNBA will come to the realization that it's time to safeguard and promote its biggest star. Let's speak about Caitlin's recent remarks and what some are referring to as a low-key issue in light of her comeback and those record-breaking figures. Perhaps I'm wearing my tinfoil hat a bit too tightly, but there's a conspiracy notion going around. I'm biting, I'll admit that. If you believe I'm completely off base or onto something, please let me know in the comments after seeing this following clip. Because this is what Caitlin replied when she was questioned directly about what led to her injuries.
And the Indiana Fever has beaten the Chicago Sky by a combined 62 points in 2 games.
But let's face it, that performance, in front of the largest audience and under the greatest limelight, formally put an end to the rivalry. Nobody is buying the media spin anymore after the league witnessed one of its most widely advertised young stars give one of the most embarrassing displays of the season.
Happy learned how to putt. Uh-oh.
Furthermore, I won't go into too much detail about the fact that Angel Reese only scored 4 more points than you, me, and my blender put together.
The cheapest ticket for the June 7th showdown is $14, according to Vivid Seats. Oh, there's some even less expensive than that.
They were there to watch my story, and first, the game against the Sky was officially over. Tickets were selling for as little as $3 right before tip-off. Getting in was actually less expensive than getting a single piece of popcorn to see the Sky fall. The worst part is still to come. A few weeks later, they rematched. Demand for tickets is already rising once more.
The cheapest ticket for that game next month is currently at $82, according to Vivid Seats. It gets much worse. Therefore, there's currently an 83% drop between the 2 games.
After overcoming her early season slump, Kelsey Mitchell is beginning to resemble her former self once more. Aaliyah Boston is still a powerful force. From 3, Lexi Hull is absolutely deadly and is putting up a strong case to be named the most improved player, possibly even close to being named an all-star. There are many things to like. When Caitlin returns, the Fever will be great just for these reasons. They were better than they would have been if she had never been late. Fever fans should be enraged only by this. However, there's more for fans of Caitlin Clark. The squad didn't only have an opportunity to improve because of this injury. It made it impossible to overlook her worth. It has never been more evident how important she is to the league. This is where we should begin.
What are we doing? What are we doing? Like, the most coddled basketball player in history. She is the 43rd best player in the WNBA. She is, and that is being the most generous I can be coming into this season.
But fam, don't you dare exclude Angel Reese out of that. That is favoritism. Don't show that, man. You need to call Angel Reese out the same way you are willing to call everybody else out.
Although beating the Sky is now almost breathing, this one was unique since the Fever accomplished it without Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, or Stephanie White, their head coach. Furthermore, it was a complete dubbing even though it wasn't their cleanest game. The rest of the WNBA should be alarmed by it, as the Fever has just shown that it is harmful. Without Caitlin, they've figured out a way to win.
Is this an injury that happened during a game or anything, or is it just something that was lingering that popped up?
It happened in the Liberty game, yeah.
Were you able to pinpoint the time in the Liberty game that happened, or you just...
No, definitely early in the game, but I couldn't tell you the exact play something occurred on. And
the Fever began to orient themselves. First, they reversed the course of that previous defeat by exacting retribution on the Mystics. Then the big one arrived. The much-awaited rematch with the Chicago Sky in front of around 20,000 spectators. The Fever also gave a statement. They not only prevailed, but completely destroyed them.
Happened in the Liberty game. Yeah, I don't believe that. She looked 60% in the Liberty game. She looked no better against the Atlanta Dream. And there's no way it happened in the Liberty game. Unless, like, she looked so much better in the second half of the Liberty game as well. I know, I just don't believe it. I just don't believe it.
McDonald, Aerie, the hardship signing, who no one had anticipated, intervened and immediately altered the atmosphere. The energy came from her. She set the tempo. Above all else, she sparked the offense. She became a fan favorite and a spark plug. Many individuals now argue that she shouldn't be used as a stopgap measure. She ought to play a role in this team's future.
If things just go as they were, and we have expanded season of 22 home games with modest inflation, I'm looking at $875 million.
Fans and commentators began to doubt everything after their humiliating loss to the Sun, a team that began the season 0-5. And it became even more ugly just when you thought it couldn't get much worse. Sydney Carlson and Sophie Cunningham were injured in that same game for the Fever. Caitlin Clark's backups vanished in an instant. The depth chart was suddenly torn, not merely thin. This is where the plot changes, though, because occasionally a door swings wide open after two smashed doors. Additionally, this one brought in a huge amount of fresh air.
She hasn't looked really right all year. Like, the Sky game was the Sky game. They destroyed the Sky. Sky were terrible. But outside the Sky game, she hasn't looked right at all. She didn't look right in preseason. She hasn't looked right at all this year.
This was Sophie Cunningham following the team's first game without Caitlin Clark, a defeat to the Mystics. And it's critical to keep in mind what she said because, in hindsight, she was right. Fans, however, did not receive the speedy reversal they were expecting for. After the Mystics' defeat, things continued to deteriorate.
I think at times the hardest part is like just not being able to be involved in practice. Like, I love practice. Not a ton of people always enjoy like coming to practice every single day, but that's something I like really enjoy. Like, I really enjoy coming out here and like competing every single day with my teammates. Like, that's probably honestly what I miss most. Obviously, I miss the games. That goes for anybody that's ever hurt, but like, I love practice. I love getting better.
They were sitting at 2-2, and it appeared as though they were going to dominate the league after their landslide victory over the Sky. In retrospect, however, the victory spoke more about the Sky being a skip fire than it did about the Fever being prepared to take over. They were obviously still figuring everything out, and the offense was haphazard. Furthermore, Caitlin was dangerous, industrious, and still managed to pull off highlights, but anyone who paid attention could see that she wasn't quite right. There was no lift. They dampened the explosiveness. That's important for what comes next, so we'll return to it in a moment. Fans were clearly worried when it was announced that she would be away for at least 2 weeks and 4 games, but there was also a certain calm assurance. This is within our grasp. Holding the fort will be the new veterans. That faith was quickly put to the test, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a unique perspective, you know, when you're out there playing and actually in the heat of the moment, you don't always realize everything, you don't always see everything, you see things from a different perspective that maybe the coaching staff didn't see. So it's certainly different. So I'm trying to, you know, kind of be that connector between the coaches and then my teammates at the same time, whether, you know, that's in the locker room at halftime, whether that's during timeouts of, you know, things I see from the bench that maybe might be a little bit different of a perspective than maybe our point guard is seeing or, you know, anybody on the floor is seeing.
Nearly 3.3 million people watched the Fever versus Liberty game at its height. That followed the first show against the Sky, which drew an average of 2.7 million viewers. The WNBA regular season match with the highest viewership since 2000. The Caitlin Clark effect, in other words, was very much alive and well. Even worse, the Fever wasn't exactly illuminating it.
After that, it's, you know, day by day and see how I feel and just kind of turn to the medical staff and what they think. But I feel like I've made a lot of progress and I feel good and, you know, not going to rush coming back. It's just not worth it.
Caitlin was doing what she does best, shattering records and dropping highlights until she left with a tight quad. Patience is considered a virtue, and that patience is going to pay off for all of the fans of Caitlin Clark and Fever. She recently revealed a significant injury update. Let's just say that the return is imminent. Now, when I suggest that patience is about to pay off, I don't mean that Caitlin will simply put on her suit again and jog onto the court while the Jumbotron displays a pathetic welcome back image. As it turns out, the Chicago Sky do more than just play. Alright, back to the return of Caitlin Clark. because everything that transpired while her absence altered everything for her, the Fever, and the WNBA as a whole. It will be much more significant than most people realize. The wild part comes next. Serious speculations are being sparked by the mystery surrounding how she was hurt in the first place. And to be honest, I hope they're real, because if they are, Caitlin Clark will be even more dangerous than she is now. The stage is officially prepared for a huge comeback because of what she told the media, the change in tone from the Fever, and the instability in the league during her absence. Narratives are already breaking and records are poised to tumble. Let's dissect everything. But first, if you believe that Caitlin's comeback will break the ratings record, please like this video. For more Fever updates, subscribe as well. Let's fast forward a few weeks first.